Hello, welcome to my video series on the heroine's journey. I'm Susanna Liller, and it's time to find your happiness. Did you know that when you write about the heroine's journey, there is a definite possibility that you will be propelled right into one, a heroine's journey, that is, which seems to have happened to me, which is why I've been writing and speaking since January in this video series and in my blog about the sacred feminine, understanding exactly what that is. That's what my journey has been about. It's all connected. So if you're interested in the heroine's journey, and that's why you're here, then the sacred feminine has a place in the pattern too. Just know that. But more on that later. First, I want to tell you a story. Back when I was still an executive coach, working with men and women within organizations, I had a woman client, an engineer. Let's call her Susie. She and a male colleague weren't getting along, and that was pretty much my role as a consultant and an executive coach, helping people learn to get along with each other so they could work together. And she had been there longer than he had. She had more experience, but he was rising fast and being recognized more than she was. She was feeling intimidated by him, like he wanted her job. And he did. Actually, he wanted to be promoted over her. Susan and I met several times and discussed the presenting issue, this competition, his advantage over hers, being female in this particular organization, an organization of engineers, which is primarily a male occupation. And then here's the kicker. He played golf and she didn't. So he was able to be there on the green for these important conversations. And eventually, as often happens, if a coach can somehow lay down a foundation that promotes trust and openness, eventually we got to what was in Susan's heart, the real seed of her unhappiness. And it wasn't so much the presenting issue. Here's what came up from the depths of Susan. And it has stayed with me. I can see so clearly the two of us sitting in a conference room and her telling me, because it's quite sad. And I think it's a common story with women. She told me, I love horses. I've always dreamed about doing something with horses, a business, something that connects me with them on a daily basis. I love them. I could feel the longing in her, the intense desire to work with these animals. But, she continued, my dad wanted me to be an engineer. Talk about a pall falling on the conversation. That was it. Story ended. The door closed. This was her life. This was her career. And she was locked, in effect, in a big, beautiful, shiny office building and a very well-paying job, making her father happy. And she was miserable, playing the male competitive, elbow jostling game of getting ahead, and totally separated from what she loved the most. So how sad is this? And how many of us have done it? But I think it's changing. And this trend of wanting to do what brings us joy, our passion, our bliss, it points, I believe, to the sacred feminine and what that's all about. What I'm calling the sacred or eternal or divine feminine. I think it's emerging more and more. It allows what calls to us from within to surface, not to repress it, to please a father, a husband, a culture, but to let it out, to let it blossom. As we celebrate International Women's Day this month, I think about how I entered the workforce in the 80s in a business that was 95% or more male, shipbuilding, and how I quickly realized I could not be myself. How I dressed, how I spoke, or how I was careful not to speak and to hold my tongue, I was always on the alert as to how to be in order to fit in, which I did. I was good at it, and I succeeded as a result. But every now and then I would let the real me out, maybe because I just couldn't help myself. Kim Hudson, in her book, The Virgin's Promise, calls this caught shining. It's like when your real self just slips out. So did I really help to found a company daycare center in a big male shipbuilding company? I did. And did I lead the division in a reinterpretation of A Christmas Carol? I did. But for the most part, I kept myself under wraps. Many women do the same to fit in, to make money, to succeed in a world which is still living to male-made standards, to please. Please know, now this is important, I am not criticizing. It is what it is. This is where we're at. We have accomplished a lot as a civilization because of our largely male-oriented society. We're not going to heal by bashing anyone. We are going to heal by allowing, accepting, appreciating, not by resisting everybody's part, appreciating the male and female, but we need to bring that more into balance. More female has to rise up, which is what this whole emerging of the sacred feminine is about. As I tuned into the monthly meeting of the women who make up the community of real-life heroines on our Zoom call last month, these are women who are, most of them are taking my online course, Your Epic Journey of Transformation. And I saw the faces of these women who are traveling through the heroine's journey milestones together in the course, and I thought, this here right in front of me, this is the sacred feminine, these faces. Each one of these women are following their own inner desire to do what they really want to do with their lives. Some are still in process, understanding what that is. Some are testing the waters of what feels right, but they are all following the beat of their own drummer. That, to me, is what the sacred feminine is all about. That is how we raise her, the feminine, giving permission to women to be who they really are. I published my book, You Are a Heroine, in 2018. I'm going to read you from the last chapter. In reading it now, I'm kind of amazed because it seems like a bit of foreshadowing for this journey of mine to understand the sacred feminine. Because the other thing about the sacred feminine that I'm learning, and hear me, I am still learning, is that it's intimately connected with our mother, the earth, how we treat the feminine. So here's what I wrote, quote, "No matter where your journey is leading you, I believe that our individual journeys all somehow contribute to the larger whole, aiding all women. I know that the story of my grandmother's jump from the train has inspired and motivated me since she first told it to me. But I'm also thinking of our deeper connection as women. Perhaps the more we honor our intuition, the more we believe in it and trust, value, and respond to it, developing our inner guidance system as a result, the more we're all lifted up together, our power exponentially increased. And the story about my grandmother is how I opened the book. And she lived in a little village in Hungary. And her heroine's journey call was to leave and come to America. And it was a huge leap. And she actually got on the wrong train and had to leap out as it was moving in order to get on the right train. So back to the book, another paragraph. This will lead us to trust more in the genius of our feminine nature so we can discover and heal in our own unique way our psychological wounds and ultimately the cultural and ecological wounds of the planet. After all, as our ancient ancestors and indigenous peoples believed and still believe, we women are the planet. We are Mother Earth. If we aren't fed and nourished, everything suffers. The way we treat ourselves and each other is reflected in our care of the planet. End of quote. Well, I can't believe that I wrote that, as I know so much more now than I did back then, but there was some prescience there, some collective understanding that I was giving voice to, that I was tapping into. And then I continued, quote, so then let's consider all of us women as a whole. Where are we on the heroine's journey? Are we in the belly of the whale? These are all heroine's journey steps. Are we floundering in the abyss, about to face our collective dragon? I see us on a new threshold. We've probably been hanging out there for a while. I don't think we've been refusing the call. I think we've been figuring out the call, what we're collectively hearing, and we're weighing how to respond. What's been our ordinary life? Another heroine's journey milestone. For thousands of years now, we've been the aid and support of our male partners. Many of us truly want to be that support, but we also feel the call to become more. We've been hearing this call for a while. The threshold guardians, the critic, internal critic, and the external critics, the threshold guardians have been very active, telling us to stand back. Many of us feel threatened as we step out of our comfort zones. The warnings come from all sides, including within. Women, you can't have it all. You thought you could, but you can't. These voices have left us with questions. What is our role? Do we lean in or do we step back? I think we're on the threshold of creating a new paradigm, a new myth for women. We aren't solely the tenders of the hearth that we used to be. We aren't only the female replacement of the male in the boardroom. We're both of these and more. So what does our new myth look like? Then I wrote, the truth is, I don't know. And I don't know. I don't. But I kept writing. We have to develop it together. We have to know our stories and share them with each other. What I do believe is that we will arrive at our new feminine myth in our own unique way. Rather than the conventional, more masculine, figuring it out method, it will come to us through those same inner currents that generate music, poetry, art, and literature. It will enter our psyches from a deeper, more subterranean level, coming from our inner spring, like the wisdom and guidance that comes into our awareness from an unsuspected source. It will be there when we start listening. Maybe the answers we seek will move in like a freight train, or perhaps they will tiptoe into our consciousness. The answers might crash down on us as we try to wrestle with our problems, or maybe they'll softly settle in to our psyches as we listen to a story. End of quote. So again, I can't believe that I wrote that. I wrote that now that I know what I'm trying to understand now about what is the sacred feminine, how is that emerging. I believe this is it. It comes from telling each other our stories. Yes, I think the answers we need to help our ailing world will come from a different place than the figuring it out place. Maybe call that our left-brained approach. I am more and more of this mind, that is using less mind, or left or less left brain. Here's how the author, psychologist, Dr. Sharon Blackie, writes about it in her book, If Women Rose Rooted. She basically is saying the same thing. Quote, the journey of the heroine we've been following in this book, and here's her book, If Women Rose Rooted, a life-changing journey to authenticity and belonging. It's her version of the heroine's journey. The journey of the heroine we've been following in this book is a journey back to the ground of our own belonging in the world, a retrieval of our life-giving feminine wisdom and the regrowth of the roots that nourish it. Our own roots, which reach down into the soil, push down into the cracks in the rocks, drink from the groundwater that flows down the mountains. She writes, this is not a journey which takes place in our heads. It is a journey which takes us out of our heads and weaves us back into the shimmering web of life. Life with all its beauty and its chaos, its caresses and its stings, its dangers and its blessings. It takes us out of our heads, she writes, and I completely agree. Now, in today's world, it's hard to get out of your head. My course has several exercises to help us with that. I call it circumventing your brain. And when you do, if you can achieve it, it's amazing what comes up. Answers to problems, poetry, renewed creativity. Einstein said, we can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them. Figuring it out isn't the answer. Letting the answers rise up from within, because they are there. Trusting your own inner intelligence. So here's what you can do. Here's a step. Here's an action you can take to start bringing this new wisdom forward, the sacred feminine. Find another heroine, a woman who knows what sets her on fire, what calls to her, her version of Susan's being with horses, and ask her to tell you her story. Then you tell her yours. Let these stories come out and weave into each other. And I believe, well, I'm coming to understand that this is the sacred feminine re-emerging into our world. And the world will be better for it. Thank you for joining me. I hope you'll keep tuning in as to what I come up with as I'm on my journey. And of course, I want to hear how you're doing on yours. So let me know. Until then, have a great journey.